My mother left me with a drunk father to keep her fortune, but she secretly built my entire life. I was the boy from the trailer park who became a top architect. Everyone thought I did it alone. They were wrong. They call me a self-made man. My bio on the firm's website says I pulled myself up from the blue-collar roots of the Rust Belt to become the youngest design lead in Chicago history. The media loves that story. They love the grit. They love the hustle. The idea that a boy who grew up in a single-wide trailer can build skyscrapers if he just works hard enough. It's a great story. It sells condos. It wins awards. But it's a lie. My name is Caleb. Not Caleb Knox, which is my father's name. My name is Caleb Vance. I am 26 years old. I design bridges. I design foundations that can withstand earthquakes. I know everything about load-bearing walls, tensile strength, and stress fractures. And I know that if you don't have a solid foundation, everything collapses, no matter how pretty the facade is. My foundation wasn't my father, Ray Knox. Ray was a demolition expert in his youth, and he treated his life the same way. He drank until his liver hardened. He smoked until his lungs rattled. He destroyed everything he touched. My foundation was a woman I wasn't allowed to call mom in public. My mother is Evelyn Vance. To the public, she is the wife of a real estate tycoon in New York. She wears silk scarves, organizes charity galas, and lives in a penthouse overlooking Central Park. To me, she is the reason I'm not in prison. She is the reason I'm not dead. I want to tell you about the boy she left behind and the man she secretly built. I grew up in a trailer park outside of Pittsburgh. It was a place where dreams went to die. The air smelled of diesel, wet dog, and rust. Ray, my father, was a functioning alcoholic. That meant he went to work at the scrapyard, came home covered in grease, cracked a beer, and didn't stop until he passed out. He wasn't mean, usually. He didn't beat me. He was just absent, a warm body in a cold room, a ghost that haunted his own recliner. But before I was an architect, I was a laborer. From the time I was 12, Ray took me to the yard. If you're gonna eat, you're gonna work, he'd say. I learned about materials in the mud. I learned the difference between copper and steel by the weight in my hands. I learned that iron rusts if you don't treat it. I learned that if you stack things wrong, they fall and crush you. I hated the dirt. I hated the smell of the grease that wouldn't wash out of my skin. But I loved the structure. I loved seeing how things were put together, even as we were tearing them apart. But I didn't carry Ray's name. When I was born, 26 years ago, my mother was given an ultimatum by her new husband, Richard. Richard was wealthy. He was powerful. And he didn't want another man's son. The bastard or the marriage, Richard had told her. She chose the marriage. She chose the security. She chose the money. But she refused to let me be a Knox. Ray wanted to call me Caleb Knox. He thought it sounded tough. He thought it sounded like a fighter. My mother, lying in the hospital bed, preparing to sign away her parental rights, grabbed the birth certificate. With a hand that I imagine was shaking with rage and grief, she wrote, Caleb Vance. Vance was her maiden name, the name she had before she was bought. He is a Vance, she told Ray. He carries my blood. You are raising him, Ray, but he belongs to me. And when he signs his name, I want him to remember he comes from something better than this. That name was my first shield. Growing up in the trailer park, everyone was a Knox, or a Miller, or a Kowalski. But I was a Vance. It sounded sharp. It sounded precise. When teachers called roll, Caleb Vance sounded like an architect, not a mechanic. It was a tiny breadcrumb of identity that she left for me. The trailer was a rotting tin can. The floorboards were soft in the kitchen. The roof leaked whenever it rained, dripping brown water onto the fake linoleum. We never had food in the fridge. Maybe a jar of pickles and a block of government cheese. But I never starved, and I never froze. Because I had box 315. I remember the day the system started. I was 7 years old. It was November 12th. My birthday. That date is burned into my brain. It was the only day of the year my mother was allowed to see me. One afternoon, 3 hours. That was the deal she made. She would drive her silver Mercedes to the edge of the trailer park, parking behind the old abandoned gas station so Ray wouldn't see. I would run through the woods to meet her. She looked like an alien. Her clothes were clean. Her hands were soft. She smelled like rain and expensive perfume. She would hug me so hard I couldn't breathe. She wouldn't say much. She would just hold my face and look at me like she was memorizing a map, like she was inspecting the structural integrity of a building she couldn't live in. Then, she would give me the key. "Caleb," she'd whisper, her voice sharp and urgent. "This is for the post office box in town. Box 315. Ray doesn't know about it. Richard doesn't know about it. It's ours." That box was my father, my mother, and my guidance counselor. When I was 10, I wanted to play Little League. All the other boys were playing. Ray said no. "Leagues cost money, kid. Cleats cost money. And I ain't driving you across town to chase a ball. Get a job if you want to play." I checked box 315. Inside was a package. A real leather Wilson glove. The smell of the new leather was intoxicating. And an envelope with cash for the registration fees and a prepaid taxi account card to take me to practice. A note. "Play hard. Keep your eye on the ball. Love, E." She signed it E. Not Mom. Just E. It was our code. When I was 12, I got into a fight at school. Some kid made fun of my shoes. Walmart specials held together with duct tape. I punched him. I got suspended. Ray laughed when he picked me up. "Good arm, kid. Don't take no crap from nobody." I felt proud for a second, but then I checked the box. Inside was a pair of Nike Jordans and a book, The Art of War. The note read, "Don't fight with your fists, Caleb. Ray fights with his fists, and look where he is. Fight with your head. Win before you throw a punch. Love, E." She was teaching me. She was molding me. She was deprogramming the Knox out of me and building the Vance. But there was one moment that nearly broke me. I was 13. Ray had dragged me to the mall in the next town over because he needed to buy a part for his truck at Sears. The mall was shiny, loud, and full of people who looked happy. I was walking through the main concourse, hands in my pockets, looking at the floor because I was ashamed of my clothes. My jeans were stained with grease from the yard. My hoodie was frayed. I smelled like the trailer. And then I saw her. She was walking out of a high-end department store. She was wearing a cream-colored coat and sunglasses. She looked beautiful. She looked untouchable. She was with a man, Richard. He was tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than Ray made in a year. He looked like he owned the building. They were walking right toward me. My heart stopped. I wanted to run to her. I wanted to scream, "Mom!" But I remembered the rules. The secret. Our eyes locked, just for a second. She didn't stop. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She looked right through me, like I was a stranger, like I was just another dirty kid from the wrong side of the tracks. She kept walking. I stood there, frozen, as the scent of her perfume drifted past me. It lingered in the air, mixing with the smell of the pretzel stand. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. Ray came up behind me and slapped my shoulder. "What are you staring at, boy? Let's go. I need a beer." I went home and cried for 3 hours. I hated her. I wanted to burn the P.O. box key. I wanted to smash the things she bought me. But 3 days later, there was a letter in the box. "I saw you. I wanted to hold you so badly, I almost fell over. But if Richard had seen me acknowledge you, he would have investigated. He would have cut off the money. He would have found the box. I had to walk past you to save you. Please forgive me. Love, E." Enclosed was a high-end sketch pad and a set of professional drafting pencils. "Draw something beautiful, Caleb. Draw a world where we don't have to hide." I picked up the pencils, and I started to draw. I drew houses. I drew bridges. I drew the trailer park, but I redesigned it. I turned the rusting metal boxes into sleek, modern modular homes. I fixed the roofs. I strengthened the foundations. I drew walls that kept the cold out. I wanted to be an architect. But the real test came when I was 15. I was playing high school football. I was a wide receiver. Fast. Wiry. I had good hands. It was my ticket out. I thought I could get a scholarship. Then, during a game in the mud, I planted my foot wrong to make a cut. Pop. I heard it before I felt it. My knee exploded. I collapsed on the 20-yard line, screaming. Ray was in the stands. He was drunk. I could hear him yelling at me to walk it off. They took me to the county hospital. The doctor told me I tore my ACL. I needed surgery. Reconstructive surgery. "It's elective," the doctor said, looking at Ray's stained t-shirt and smelling the whiskey on his breath. We can put him in a brace, let it heal stiff. He won't play ball again, and he'll have a limp for the rest of his life, but he'll walk. We'll take the brace, Ray said immediately. I ain't got $5 grand for surgery. He ain't going to the NFL anyway. He can still work the yard with a limp. I lay there on the paper-covered table, 15 years old, watching my future evaporate. If I couldn't run, I couldn't get a scholarship. If I couldn't get a scholarship, I was stuck in the trailer park forever. I would end up working in the scrapyard with Ray, hauling scrap until my back gave out. I went home. I limped to my room. I cried into my pillow so Ray wouldn't hear. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. A text from a burner number. Check the box. I hobbled to the post office on my crutches. It took me an hour. I opened box 315. Inside was a thick packet. It wasn't cash. It was a confirmation letter from a private orthopedic clinic in Pittsburgh, the best sports medicine clinic in the state, the place where the Steelers went. Appointment, Thursday, 10 a.m. Procedure, ACL reconstruction. Surgeon, Dr. Andrews. Status, paid in full. And a note. You are not going to limp, Caleb. You are going to run. I hired a private car to pick you up at the gas station. Tell Ray you're going to a school assembly. Love, E. She saved my leg. I got the surgery. I did the rehab in secret. I told Ray the school nurse was helping me with exercises. I got back on the field senior year. I was faster than before. But by then, I knew football wasn't the end game. The injury taught me something. It taught me about structure, about how things are built, about how fragile the human body and a human life really is. I applied to the University of Illinois. Their architecture program was top tier. I got in. But the tuition was impossible. Even with financial aid, there was a massive gap. Ray just laughed when I showed him the acceptance letter. College? He wheezed, popping a tab on a beer. Boy, you're dreaming. You got a job waiting for you at the yard. You're strong. You can haul metal. Don't get above your raising. You're a Knox, whether you like it or not. I felt the walls closing in. The gravity of the trailer park was pulling me down. I could feel the grease under my fingernails already. Then, the text came. Check the box. I went. Inside was a key, a safety deposit box key for a bank in downtown Pittsburgh. And a letter. Caleb, I know you want to build things. I've seen the sketches you sent me. They are beautiful. They have structure. I cannot be there to drop you off at the dorms. Richard would never allow it. He thinks I spend my money on clothes and jewelry. Go to the bank. Open box 104. I have been putting away consulting fees from Richard's company for 18 years. I hid it. I laundered it. It's clean. Build something that lasts, Caleb. Build something better than what we gave you. Love, Mom. She signed it, Mom. For the first time. I went to the bank. I walked into the vault. I opened box 104. Inside was a cashier's check for $200,000. I stood in the quiet, air-conditioned vault, a kid in a stained hoodie and worn-out sneakers, holding enough money to buy the entire trailer park 3 times over. I cried, not because of the money, but because of the strategy. She had been planning this since the day she signed my birth certificate. I didn't buy the trailer park. I went to Chicago. I paid my tuition up front. I bought a laptop that could run the heaviest CAD software. I bought a drafting table. I bought a tailored suit. Architecture school was brutal. It wasn't just the work, it was the culture. I was surrounded by kids who had grown up in the houses I dreamed of building. Kids whose fathers were architects or developers. Kids who had traveled to Rome and Paris. I had never been on an airplane. I remember my sophomore studio critique. The professor, a man named Dr. Sterling, was tearing apart my design for a community library. It was a concrete and glass structure. Heavy, grounded. It's too fortress-like, Dr. Sterling said, looking down his nose at me. He adjusted his tortoiseshell glasses. It feels defensive. Where's the whimsy? Where's the lightness? You design like you're expecting a siege, Mr. Vance. I looked at him. I looked at the other students in their expensive sweaters. I design for durability, I said quietly. I design for people who need to know the roof isn't going to cave in. Whimsy is for people who have never been cold. That's engineering, he scoffed. Architecture is art. You need to let go of this blue-collar rigidity. I went back to my dorm. I wanted to quit. I felt like a fraud. I felt like the grease was still on my hands. Then I opened my sketchbook. I looked at the drawing of the trailer park renovation I had done when I was 14. I realized he was wrong. My rigidity wasn't a weakness. It was my strength. I knew the value of shelter because I had lived without it. I doubled down. I studied structural engineering alongside design. I became obsessed with materials: concrete, steel, tempered glass. I graduated top of my class. I got hired by the biggest firm in the city. I rose fast, not because I was smarter, but because I outworked everyone. I didn't have a safety net. I didn't have parents to fall back on. I worked like I was still in the scrapyard. I designed a library in the South Loop. I designed a bridge in Michigan. I became known for my brutalist elegance, strong, unshakable structures. And last year, I started a personal project. It wasn't for a client. It was a spec house. I bought a plot of land in a quiet, upscale suburb of Chicago. A place with trees. A place with silence. I poured the foundation myself. I wanted to feel the concrete. I wanted to know it was solid. I designed it specifically for a woman who loves light but has lived in the dark. Floor-to-ceiling windows to let the sun in, but thick, triple-pane glass for safety. A garden room for hydrangeas, her favorite flower. A kitchen with an island big enough to bake cookies she never got to bake for me. A master suite with a heavy oak door and a lock that no one else had a key to. I built it with my own money. My self-made money. And then, last month, I got a call. It was the hospital back home. Caleb Vance. Yes. It's your father, Ray Knox. He's had a massive stroke. He's in the ICU. I flew back. I walked into the hospital. I wasn't the scared kid with the torn ACL anymore. I was a man in a $2,000 suit. I walked into the ICU. Ray looked small. The alcohol had finally won. He was withered, hooked up to machines. His skin was gray. I stood over him. This man who had told me to walk off a broken leg. This man who wanted me to rot in a scrapyard. This man who never bought me a birthday present in his life. I should have hated him. But I looked at his hands. They were scarred, calloused. He had worked hard in his own way. He was just broken. A structure with no foundation. A building that had been condemned from the start. "Hey, Ray," I said. He opened one eye. It was cloudy. He tried to focus. "Caleb? That you?" "Yeah, it's me." You look good," he rasped. "You wearing a suit?" "Yeah, Ray. I'm an architect." He smiled, a crooked, broken smile. "I knew it. I always knew you were too smart for the yard." He was lying. He never knew. He never believed in me. But I let him have the lie. It cost me nothing. "Thanks, Ray." I went to the nurse's station. "I want him moved to a private room," I said. "I want the best palliative care you have. Whatever he needs to be comfortable." "It's expensive," the nurse warned. I pulled out my black Amex. "I can afford it." I paid for his care. I sat with him for 3 days. I made sure he wasn't in pain. He died on a Tuesday. At the funeral, it was just me and a few guys from the scrapyard. It was raining. The mud was thick, just like the day I tore my knee. And then, a black car pulled up. She stepped out. She was older, 55 now. Her hair was graying at the temples. She wasn't wearing diamonds. She was wearing black. She looked tired. Richard's control had taken its toll. She walked over to me. She didn't care about the rain. She didn't care about the mud on her shoes. "Caleb," she said. "Mom," I said. We hugged. It wasn't the frantic, desperate hug of the stolen weekends. It was a solid, steady embrace. A meeting of equals. Two survivors standing in the rain. "I'm sorry about Ray," she said. "It's okay," I said. "He did his best," which wasn't much. But he kept the roof up, mostly. "I should have taken you," she whispered, tears mixing with the rain on her face. "I should have left Richard 20 years ago and taken you. We would have been poor, but we would have been together." "No," I said. "If you had taken me, we would have starved. I would be working in a warehouse right now. You did what you had to do. You built the scaffolding so I could build the building." She looked at me, surprised. She touched the lapel of my suit. "I have something for you," I said. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a key. "What is this?" she asked. "Another P.O. box." "No," I said. "It's a house key." I pulled out my phone. I showed her the photos. The house in Chicago. The light. The garden room. The kitchen. Richard is retiring, I said. I know he's getting worse. I know he monitors your spending. I know you're trapped in that penthouse. She nodded, looking down. You're not trapped anymore, I said. The house is in your name. Evelyn Vance. Not Sterling. Just Vance. It's paid for. The taxes are paid for the next 10 years. There's a bank account attached to it with enough to live on. She stared at the photo. She touched the screen, tracing the lines of the roof. You built this. We built it, I said. You bought the bricks. I just laid them. Caleb, I can't just leave him. The scandal, he'll come after me. Mom, I said, holding her shoulders. My voice was calm, authoritative. The voice of a man who builds skyscrapers. I am a senior architect. I build things that survive hurricanes. I built you a fortress. Let him come. I have lawyers now, too. She closed her hand around the key. She looked at the grave of the man she left me with. Then she looked at the man I became. She took a deep breath. She straightened her spine. Okay, she whispered. Okay. She left Richard a week later. She simply walked out of the penthouse with a suitcase and flew to Chicago. She lives in the house now. She grows hydrangeas. She bakes cookies. They're terrible, burn on the bottom, raw in the middle, but I eat them anyway. I am 26. I am not self-made. I was made by a woman who made the hardest choice a mother can make. She sacrificed her daily happiness to secure my future survival. She became a villain in her own story so she could be the hero in mine. And I am proud to be her son. I am proud to be a Vance. So, to the boys growing up in trailers, waiting for a savior, sometimes the savior isn't coming through the front door. Sometimes, she's slipping a key under the table at a diner. Sometimes, she's hiding a check in a library book. Look for the invisible string. It's stronger than steel, and you can build a whole life on it. Have you ever had someone support you from the shadows? Do you think Caleb should have saved his mother? If you believe that love is an action, not just presence, hit that like button and subscribe. #TheArchitect.